allow us to be able to change user behavior and to also create a area where we can have these higher occupancy buses, for instance, going on them, like the rapids that I'll talk about next. When we take a look at the next layer, we're talking about the next generation of rapid. And these are types of buses that we don't currently have, but this is a system that allows fast movement between different places. It's convenient, it's safe, it's flexible. It would have something like a 10-minute head time, so they would always be available. And they run on separated guideways. They run on managed lanes that we talked about just momentarily before. And these systems allow for longer trips. So for instance, if people wanted to get to work, they could use these type of alternates to driving. And they would also be good for some of the more medium trips. And they're tied to the local areas. Next, we have light rail. Light rail can be used for shorter trips, but it also accommodates some of the longer trips that we have. And it's represented by the red lines that you see on that map. And this would help tie people to not only employment centers, but would also help tie people to higher education and all the different areas where you might want to go in terms of recreation. There's a lot more in the plan that goes with light rail. And this includes things like grade separation and helping cars and these light rail not necessarily conflict with each other. And finally, we have commuter rail. And the commuter rail are for these longer trips from either the border going up into the central business district where we have all of our employment centers, or down from the border coming into the same area, or in from the east. And you see this commuter rail being overlaid on top of that. So the regional plan proposes a system that has over 10,000 connections between these layers. And the system is made up of hundreds of projects that Colleen kind of mentioned that are in that Appendix A. And what we're really here to do is to talk to you about those projects. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Colleen.
All right, great. So now Ray talked about the system and how the system really helps provide travel options, how the whole system works together to optimize mobility for everyone. And I wanted to point out just a couple things when it comes to equity. Ray mentioned 10,000 connections. Those 10,000 connections are what are helping people get to jobs. Those connections are helping people get to higher education, to quality healthcare, and that's really important for upward mobility when it comes to equity. Also, travel options so that we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and the improvements in the local communities. So the improvements in mobility hubs to make our communities more walkable, to make our communities more bikeable, that they're pleasant and safe places to be for those short trips, whether we're walking to school or for our basic needs. So what we're going to do now is we are going to have presentations from 3 or 4 of our team members to dig into the various subregions. And I want to start by just showing you a map that's included in Appendix A. And this explains how everything is organized. And so, Phil, if you can go to the next slide here, we have a map, the slide after that. This map shows the 11 corridors in the San Diego region. And there are multiple projects within each of these corridors. And these projects include the specifics on managed lanes and whether it's a connector connecting one freeway to another or the managed lane to the next managed lane for that fully connected system, all the transit lines, all the improvements that we're talking about for active transportation. And if you go to the next slide, Phil, that lays out everything we're talking about here: active transportation, connection, the connectors, what's happening on the rural corridors, goods movement. And this is really the opportunity for all of you to ask questions about the improvements in your specific communities, in your districts, in your cities. So the next slide. And this is where we're going to get into the sub-regional presentations. And we are going to start with a presentation from Brian Lane. And he's going to go through some of the details in the North County sub-region. And I guess I should also point out that there are more than 500 listings in here. Today, we're going to attempt to get through maybe a quarter of those, and we fully expect all of you to ask any questions that you have about anything that either we haven't mentioned, or you want clarity on something that one of the planners mentioned, or you've had a chance to peruse Appendix A and you have any questions about what's in here. This is the time to do that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Colleen. So I'm going to zoom in on North County, a region that demonstrates a great opportunity for an integrated system mobility that captures the essence of what the 5 big moves can provide for everyone, from solo drivers to the transit dependent to those that want a safe and convenient option on their bike or scooter. Lots of residents take short trips around the region, yet there's a need for people to connect with other parts of the region for work and leisure travel. North County's coastal corridor serves as a thoroughfare for highway goods movement to Los Angeles, and that impacts the highway travel experience for North County residents needing to reach other communities in the area in a timely manner. Here's a snapshot of North County and how it can be re-envisioned from a transportation perspective to meet VMT reduction goals while improving quality of life for residents, employees, and visitors traveling throughout the area daily. In a second, I'll show you the existing system, and then we'll jump through what we envision for 2025, 2035, and for 2050. Data shows that people moving around North County are traveling in all directions. Commuters need to do short trip north to south trips, and they often jump on the 78 for just a few exits. Others are using the 78 to go the full 20 miles. There's a real opportunity to leverage the area's strong north-south arterial roadway network to ease demand on highways by deploying local on-demand fleets to make point-to-point connections. So now we're all very familiar with North County's existing transportation system and its challenges. Parts of the 78, 5, and 15 get congested at various times of the day. Today, without a complete system of managed lanes, even folks in a carpool are stuck in traffic when the managed lanes end on the I-15. Rail services are well placed in many places inland and along the coast, but the trains don't come often enough yet. Buses are often sitting in traffic, especially at congested intersections and other congestion points. Biking connections are somewhat weak or need to be much better protected from high-speed roadway traffic. It's also important, though, to recognize all the vital assets in North County. The region has thriving job centers, there are popular coastal destinations, and thoroughfares to get there. Good roadway connectivity, enabling us to reach every North County community while respecting the area's lagoons, preserves, and agricultural areas. Projects identified in the draft regional plan for North County address these challenges in a way that produces tangible results. From a GHG reduction perspective, and our need to ensure people of all ages, abilities, and income levels have access to safe, fair, clean, and fast transit solutions. All of the regional mobility hub areas you see here already have developed to be full of home, work, shopping, dining, and recreational opportunities. These are the hotspots, so to speak, where coastal villages, colleges, major employment sites, and a lot of retail is based. People live, work, or visit these areas. While there may still be opportunities to plan and build some infill development, there's no questioning these locations as real travel destinations for North County, locals, and others in the region. So now, I'd like to walk you through a phased set of improvements that transition North County into a place where I truly believe that driving, riding transit, hailing a fleet, or biking can be all possible. All of the North County hub areas represent opportunities to introduce more travel options to the communities that the building blocks for hub success. A high concentration of people and places. All that needs to be added are a larger variety of convenient travel choices coupled with land use changes. Many people travel to or between North County coastal hubs via the I-5. By 2025, carpool lanes will be open and ready to help cars with 2 or more people flow much more freely up and down the coast. A vital inland rail trail link is added to the active transportation network, providing a safe off-street path that connects many rail stations, civic centers, and universities. You'll see the active network built out more by 2035. North County boasts a solid arterial roadway network connecting many communities. 2025 will serve as a starting point for implementing smart intersection improvements and other active demand management technologies to ensure pooled rides and local transit can cruise by the congestion. These technology improvements work to enhance safety and more efficient operations for all modes. A new next-gen rapid service connecting Escondido to Oceanside via Palomar Airport Road and a portion of SR 78, offering a much-needed east-west connection traversing the area's 3 major hub centers, while offering a Sprinter South type of experience. Rapid vehicle priority on the road coupled with 10-minute frequencies will contribute to a stress-free travel experience. Rail travel up and down the coast is more convenient with coaster trains running every 30 minutes during the peak commute times. And then while not shown on the map, local buses will start seeing improvements as well, getting some of the same priority treatments as next-gen rapids, with some routes getting frequency and span of service bumps to help those that need transit outside standard working hours. Working with the transit agencies, the region will continue to convert transit vehicles to zero emission, helping to make our region's air quality even better. So over the next 10 years, the region will start seeing more projects and policies come online, making the 5 Big Move system even more robust. 2035 is a pivotal point for our regional mobility hub areas as transit and roadway infrastructure is greatly enhanced, all while providing a unique place for a wide variety of flexible fleets to thrive. Everything from personal owned micromobility to on-demand shuttles that help people reach coaster or sprinter and all types of local destinations. True door-to-door options. Since it's simply not practical to feature fixed route transit services on every road and guarantee a transfer-free experience, particularly in a suburban setting like North County, that also features challenges with canyons and hills, our mobility hubs and flexible fleets will be needed to move residents more creatively. In 2035, we fully deploy managed lanes on SR 78 to ease congestion and really have the corridor be responsive and near real time to current traffic conditions. A better managed corridor has a positive impact on all the local roads connecting to it. Freeway and managed lanes connectors offer a much smoother, congestion-free transition between the 78 in both directions on the 5 and 15. Completed inland rail trail between Oceanside to Escondido and everywhere in between, really allowing for residents to use their bikes for commutes, errands, and for fun. Even more bike path miles along the coast and inland to help folks rapidly adopting e-bikes and other micromobility solutions move more safely in their neighborhoods. The frequent coaster service gets extended to Camp Pendleton and can start seeing speeds up to 110 miles an hour to decrease travel times. The Sprinter will now be coming every 15 minutes all day with added double tracking and grade separations, keeping as much roadway traffic away from the rails. 5 new rapid services come online, heading in various directions, as so many North County residents do, making it possible to travel from hub to hub. Palomar Airport Road is reimagined as a tech-savvy corridor while giving Rapid the fixed guideway priority and attention it deserves to reach the thriving tech industry North County has worked so hard to nurture and grow. Local buses and flexible fleets will be given more operating funds to increase services where they truly are needed. By now, we'll be offering transit for cheaper for many riders, so residents and workers will see transit as the perfect option for them. As you can see with this build out by 2035, the region has extensive managed lanes and connectors, smarter streets, and lots more transit options. The options for those without access to a car will be equitable, allowing for economic freedom for all. So by 2050, our denser neighborhoods and businesses are built up with safer streets and smarter managed roads and freeways. County residents in or near mobility hubs will now have enough fast and safe options to do their errands and work trips in something other than their car. For those that still need to drive, we continue to manage the roads and freeways. I-15 north of Escondido will get managed lanes to the county line. I-5 from the county line to the South County will now be fully managed as well. Our bike network will continue to grow and be connected to more and more places. As we've seen in other great regions of the country and the world, once these networks are built, people really will use them. The Sprinter gets extended to the Escondido Mall, and we will see 10-minute frequencies. Again, with built up mobility hubs and frequencies like these on local buses and rapids, coaster and Sprinter, riders will be able to take transit seamlessly. With the coaster seeing further improvements near the university area, more residents and employees will be able to take a couple modes of transit and get to where they need to go quickly and safely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to show you the east-west connections.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. My name is Alex Estrella, and I served as a co-lead for the complete quarters with Tuari Faola, and both of us will be presenting the east-west subregion. And here's a snapshot of the proposed improvements along the subregion, which is bound by the I-5 corridors, as you can see, to the west, and it also extends to the inland communities through our suburban and rural communities to the east. And this subregion is characterized by a diverse range of environments from the rural inland communities to the urban neighborhoods along the western end. Now, through this subregion, our data reveal that critical travel connections are being made by people commuting from rural and suburban residential areas in the east to urban communities and outlying job centers. And within this subregion, we also consider the mobility needs of our rural communities. For example, for our rural corridors, just like State Route 67, access for emergency evacuations and access for first responders to rural communities is a critical need. So to address and help meet the needs of the subregion, among the central projects that you will see for the subregion include, for example, some early improvements in rapid transit services, intersection and railway technology improvements in the earlier stages of the regional plan. But we also have 3 managed lanes along the subregion, which are complemented with next generation rapid transit services. We also have a major commuter rail proposed by the 2050 phase. So when all put together, all the projects proposed in this subregion really create a fabric that will provide convenient travel options, improve connectivity within and between these regional hubs that you see here and within the respective communities to improve transportation system efficiency, safety, and while reducing congestion and VMT. Now, before we introduce the projects by phase, let me just walk you through some of the existing network conditions in the subregion. Now, there are several corridors that provide that backbone for the east-west travel in this region, connecting people and goods to places of employment, local community, businesses and shops, and residences. Now, currently, the primary corridors within this area include, for example, State Route 52, I-8, and State Route 94, and we also have State Route 67 to the east. Now, these corridors also serve connecting points to the other major corridors that you will hear as part of the other presentations, or you heard also from Brian. And these include, for example, the I-5 corridor, the State Route 63, the 805, and the State Route 125. Now, these corridors are limited in transit options with the exception of I-8, which is served by the green line and orange lines. Now, there are also a number of rapid buses that traverse the subregion. As you can see here, we have the I-15 rapid services, the Mid-City and the Mid-Center line stations, and we also have the South Bay Rapid that comes from along the 805 and then uses the State Route 95. Now, we recognize that there are many other local transit services, but we're only highlighting the rapid services for the existing conditions. Other transit services that traverse this region include the Oceanside to downtown San Diego Commuter Rail, and we also see the Mid-City Mid-Coast Trolley, which you can see here on the top left. And supplementing this, we also have the building out of the adopted active transportation projects. Now, within this subregion, it is important to recognize the existing community assets to make communities in the subregion mobility hubs. So for example, El Cajon demonstrates the building blocks for a solid gateway mobility hub, serving as an entry point into the regional light rail network located in downtown that has already embraced development. Now, also included in this subregion, we have the Kearney Mesa and the Mission Valley Mobility Hub, which are the region's top set of job centers that demonstrate how new job centers can be provide dense housing development that can be co-located with employment to offer a live-work experience. And to the west of this region, we have the largest mobility hub, which is the urban core. Now let's take a look at the first phase of proposed improvements for the subregion. So one of the first steps of addressing the travel needs of the subregion is to implement the technology backbone that will allow us to holistically manage highways and arterials within the mobility hubs concepts. So the map here shows a system of complete corridors regional arterial, which Brian also introduced in his region, which is part of the initial investments for the subregion in 2025. Now, proposed improvements along this local network of arterials includes the implementation of a smart intersection system. Now, this concept includes technology that allows and processes data for traffic signal controllers, sensors, and connected vehicles to monitor and adjust signal operation. With this technology, we can improve travel times, reduce stop and go conditions, and create a safe environment for local streets and intersections. Now, this concept also includes smart sensors technology. And this technology can create a safe environment for bicyclists, pedestrians, and these smart sensors can also provide data on collisions and near misses, so unsafe intersections and roadway segments can be identified for improvements. This technology will provide the priority treatments for rapid transit services, freight, and emergency vehicles to enhance travel times and on-time performance. Now, this technology is built upon an existing project currently underway in partnership with Caltrans, Sandag, and the county to incorporate 18 miles of fiber on State Route 67 from Lakeside to Ramona this summer. Now, this broadband connectivity is needed for the technology solutions to improve operations, improve traffic flow, but also improve safety. Also, adding fiber also closes the loop of our rural digital divide by expanding affordable, high-speed internet services to the communities along the corridor. Now, these early investments in the 2025 really provide the infrastructure, communication technology, which serve as the foundation for our rural complete corridor concepts and the next OS 5 big moves. Additional investments in 2025 include 3 rapid light transit services, which are supported by the regional arterial network and the technology. And this includes the rapid from Kearny Mesa, one of our region's Tier 1 employment centers, to Pacific Beach. Another one from La Mesa to North Park and Hillcrest on University Avenue, connecting with Ocean Beach. We also have a rapid from Spring Valley through the Southeast San Diego to downtown San Diego. Now, these routes serve our low-income communities, providing much needed connection to our neighborhood schools, our parks, the beach, medical facilities, and jobs. Other noted proposed transit projects that traverse this region include upgrades to our commuter services. This includes the coaster and the Pacific Surfliner that traverse this region within the Gaslamp as well area. Now, supplementing this list of projects includes providing the missing links to our active transportation network projects for the San Diego River Trail or the Pershing Drive Bikeway. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tuari, and she's going to walk us through the proposed investments for the 2035 and 2050 phase.
Thanks, Alex. So Brian spoke earlier about 2035 being a pivotal point in our region's mobility, and that's certainly the case here. The new complete corridor investments start with the development of managed lanes. A core part of the managed lanes network is technology that makes our corridors smart and responsive to real-time conditions. The next OS will allow us to monitor, manage, and optimize our freeway network, traffic signals, ramp meters, and transit operations. It also provides new tools like dynamic lane assignment, speed harmonization, real-time traveler information, and dynamic routing. And the investment in smart infrastructure like sensors and communications technology makes the hard infrastructure responsive and adaptable to changing conditions. Connected technologies can help prevent accidents and save lives, helping cities and our region achieve Vision Zero goals. So I'd like to highlight a few of the new managed lanes projects within this subregion, starting with State Route 52. So this is a critical connection between the El Cajon Gateway Mobility Hub and the Kearny Mesa Major Employment Center. It has 3 managed lanes between the Interstate 805 and Mass Boulevard. One of those lanes would be reversible, and with technology, allow us to be responsive to the changing demands of this corridor by adding capacity where it's needed most. Interstate 8 has 4 managed lanes between I-805 and Greenfield Drive in El Cajon, which will encourage carpooling and add capacity to this major goods movement corridor. And State Route 94 between Interstate 5 and State Route 125 has 3 managed lanes, and State Route 125 has 2 managed lanes. These east-west managed lanes projects provide a direct connection to the north-south corridors that by not only providing a system of managed lanes, but also supporting connectors and direct access ramps for transit to connect suburban and the rural parts of our county to major medical campuses, key employment centers, and universities and more. So these corridors with the complete corridors arterial network that you heard Alex talk about earlier provide improved access for east-west travel within our region and improve connections for State Route 67 that's shown here on the map in green. This has shoulder widening and straightening projects that are proposed for 2035 between Mapleview and Dye Road. And there are multiple rapid routes proposed for 2035 in this subregion. And several of them are very much dependent upon the complete corridors managed lane network. I'll walk you through a few of them. Looking at the top here, you can see the rapid from State Route 52. It provides a transit alternative and a one-seat ride from El Cajon and Santee to the major employment centers of Kearney Mesa and Sorrento Valley. Key to the success of this route are the mobility hub features, which make taking transit easier with investments in car share, ride share, microtransit, as well as park and ride facilities at anchor transit stations, as well as much more, all while working with local jurisdictions on these mobility improvements. And by 2035, the rapid that Alex spoke to you about earlier that serves our low income and communities of color from Spring Valley to the east through Southeast San Diego to the west, all the way to downtown, will be improved to have dedicated lanes to prioritize transit for this corridor. And rapid services will continue to supplement those east-west routes, providing localized travel and connection to San Diego State University, as you can see in the middle of the map, traveling along Euclid Avenue, 54th, and College Avenue. And there's an additional East County new line that will have a new rapid that connects from El Cajon all the way down to South Bay and the border. So the expansion of the rapid network is supported by improvements to the two existing light rail lines, the orange and the green lines, by adding double and triple tracking and grade separations to these light rail lines, not to mention the improved connections to all of the other major transit investments, as you can see with the purple commuter rail line here shown, or our low sand corridor. And even more of the adopted bike network gets built out by 2035, such as the full on-street connection for the San Diego River Trail between State Route 52 and Interstate 8, and the Center City project from La Mesa to Encanto. And these connections will allow people to safely bike to work, bike for leisure, or to school between communities such as La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and Encanto. So moving further east within the subregion, there are proposed additional improvements on the rural corridors, which include widening of shoulders to create median buffers or turning lanes to allow emergency responders rapid access. There are also curve warning and speed feedback signs to improve safety, the implementation of lane assignment and routing to provide rapid access and greater capacity, and better travel information for roadway conditions or emergency notifications. So now let's move into 2050. Much of the east-west managed lanes network and connectors are built out in 2035. But the additional managed lane segments and supporting connectors along State Route 52 and Interstate 8 west of I-805 are proposed for 2050, along with the remaining northern segment of State Route 125. So the expansion of the rapid system is supported by improvements to the existing green and orange light rail lines, and also the new east-west commuter rail line, where the Gateway Mobility Hub and El Cajon connects all the way down to the urban mobility hub, giving riders the choice of continuing directly into downtown or giving them the choice to go directly to the Central Mobility Hub, which provides direct access to the airport. So by 2050, it's also anticipated that all of our mobility hub features, flexible fleets, and opportunities for increased land use densities within these hubs will be fully realized. And by 2050, the full build out of our adopted bike plan will be in place, supporting the mobility hubs, transit, and regional connections, completing links along corridors such as State Route 52, that one could travel from Santee to Sorrento on a bike, making this truly a complete corridor. And you can see here in this next slide, the full build out of all the proposed east-west connections within the subregion. So when all of the regional plan projects are put together, you can see the proposed improvements meets the needs for east-west travel, which also does include, again, adding capacity through a system of managed lanes, some of them having reversible lanes to meet the corridor's changing demands. And these investments will provide additional travel options that are not there today, and improve connectivity within and around the mobility hubs. These projects really do continue to recognize the different mobility needs within the subregion and provide efficient transportation options for everyone. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Jennifer to talk about our South to Central subregion.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Williamson. I'm a principal planner here at Sandag and the co-lead for the Transit Leap move of the regional plan. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our south and central portion of the region. Just to familiarize yourself with what area we're going to be covering, this area is bounded by SR 56 to the north, the I-15, 125 to the east, the international border to the south, and the Pacific Ocean to the west. This area is home to our 3 Tier 1 employment centers, all of our light rail services, all of our rapid services, some of the densest communities in the region, as well as some of our primary activity centers. Next slide, please. So first, let's take a look at our existing system that we have out there today. And we'll start with the I-15, which is shown in the northeast corner of your map here. And this is really our primary managed lanes that we have operating in the region today. And I'm sure you're all very familiar with how I-15 operates, but just so you know, we have 4 managed lanes in the center of the freeway, which allows for shared rides and transit to have a full level of priority. There are 2 direct access ramps on the I-15 shown in this graphic, one at Sabre Springs and one at the Hillary Dar. This allows for transit to access at these sites to major transit centers. And then as we look at the regional transit network, you'll see the purple line there, and that's our Coaster Low Sand Corridor. The Coaster has had extensive improvements of late, including double tracking and improvements to the Del Mar cliffs. So those are shown there in the purple. You'll see our light rail system shown in the magenta on the slide here. And as I said, this portion of our subregion includes all of our light rail lines. So you have the blue line trolley that operates from San Ysidro all the way up to Old Town today. And then very exciting, in November, it will operate all the way to University City. We also have our green line that provides connections from Old Town across Mission Valley to serve SDSU, very important university, and then over to Santee. And then finally, you'll see the orange line in the eastern portion of the sub area, which operates between downtown San Diego and El Cajon Boulevard. This really provides the primary backbone of our transit system. I mentioned that we do have our five rapid services in this region as well, and you'll see those identified in the map in green. So probably the key component of our existing network that you're very well familiar with is that a number of our active transportation routes are under construction right now, and they'll be in place for 2025, which will allow us to build on the active transportation network. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what's happening in 2025. If you look at the complete corridors and you look at the southeastern edge of your graphic there, you'll see that we have the addition of a new State Route 11 that will attach to the Otay Mesa border crossing. This is an essential goods movement corridor that provides a whole new access for freight and trucks to access our transit system. You'll also see that our mobility hubs come up here, and we kind of call these mobility hubs in training, if you will. The urban areas of San Diego are ripe for transportation options, and San Ysidro today largely acts as a de facto mobility hub with the exception of the land uses. We have extensive micro-mobility down at San Ysidro. We have a large number of transit options, and people are able to make short trips, medium trips, and long trips from San Ysidro today. So as you go up into the central part of the corridor, what you'll see here is that we have a connector that connects from the 125 and the 94. And if you'll recall, a couple of years ago at our board meeting, we heard that this was a very poorly designed interchange and that this connector was needed so that we allowed for free flow conditions between these two major freeways. And then finally, you'll see kind of the squiggly lines in the center of your graphic there. That's our active transportation routes. And as I said before, what we're doing in 2025 is really building off the success of the Transnet Bike Early Action Program. And you'll see here we have our Central Avenue bike lane, and we have the Pershing. Those are the dark squiggles on your map there. And those really provide a fully off-street bike lane for people of all ages and all activity levels. And as Alex and Tueri shared with you before, overlaid on top of all of this, kind of in the background, is our Next OS and our smart signals and smart technologies. Next slide, please. And here you have the coaster that comes down. And what's happening with the coaster, as I said before, the low sand corridor has had extensive improvements. In 2025, because we have laid the groundwork with the double tracking of the coaster, we're able to increase the frequencies and headways. We're also continue to make those improvements to the bluffs as we access downtown San Diego and get the coaster off the coast there. Next slide, please. So now we're in 2035, and really what you see here is that the mobility hubs get much darker. And the reason for that is that all the transit investments, the Next OS investments, and the incentives that we're providing for flexible fleet operators allows us to really start to intensify the areas around where transit and our complete corridors are going to be operating. What you see here first on this graphic is our complete network of managed lane system throughout the south and central portion of the corridor. I know it looks like a lot of squiggly lines, but let's break it down a little bit for you. So the I-5 and the I-805 will move to a condition with 6 lanes and 4 managed lanes, almost operating the entire distance along that corridor, along both those corridors. We also add our managed lanes connectors, and those are the green dots that you see between each of the different types of managed lanes on the system. The managed lanes in this portion of the county are going to be largely used for transit and shared mobility. But also, I can't focus enough on how important 805 and 5 are for goods movement. With SR 11 and the new POE coming online, it becomes very critical that the 805 offers some level of priority for goods movement to continue to operate seamlessly the entire distance from north to south in this corridor. The I-15 in 2030 gets completed. Right now, you'll see that it ends just to the north of the 52. In this phase of the plan, we'll be extending it all the way down to the 94 with 4 managed lanes and the connectors that support those. I'm not going to focus on our east-west lines that are shown on this graphic because you heard about those from Tueri and Alex. But let's just look real quickly at some of the inner city or the urban corridor managed lanes. Those do come up, and Alex and Tueri talked to you a little bit about those. So you'll see that the 52 comes online and the 94 managed lanes come online as well through the center of our area. Next, please. So now we have our bike system. And as you heard before, the focus of this phase of the project is to complete our coastal rail trail. This is a 44-mile bike route that will operate all the way from Oceanside down to downtown San Diego. And that'll be one great ride, I think, once you can make that in its entirety. So pieces of that that system come together here in 2035. Additionally, the Bayshore Bikeway, which we've been working on for many, many years, gets largely completed in this phase of the plan. So you'll be able to ride a bike from downtown San Diego and then wrap around all the way through to Coronado. And then the San Diego River Trail, providing connections to SDSU West and other points along the Mission Valley area, will be completed in this phase of the plan. So next, let's talk about transit. It's my favorite. So here is our next generation rapid routes. There's over 20 of these rapid routes in this study area. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm open to answering any questions. What I'd like to focus on here is some of our next generation rapid routes in different portions of the community. I neglected to tell you that in 2025, we do have 4 rapid routes that come online, and I think you saw those, but we can go back if you'd like to cover those. But in 2035, some additional routes come online, and those include the Rapid 640 along I-5 that will use the managed lanes that I mentioned earlier. Rapid 640 is kind of a precursor, if you will, for the Blue Line Express, and it will provide for a one-seat ride all the way from the border into downtown San Diego, and it'll help relieve some of the congestion that we have on our trolley lines today. And then if you look down at the south side of at the south bottom portion of your map, if you will, we have the Rapid 709. We learned from our outreach efforts that we need better connectivity between the trolley and our eastern communities of Chula Vista. Rapid 709 will provide a fast, convenient access from the Blue Line to Southwestern College and to Otay Ranch. That's a primary movement that we saw again and again in our research. And then continuing up through the center of our region, we have Rapid 41 that will connect Fashion Valley through Claremont, Linda Vista, serve UTC, and ultimately UCSD, providing yet another critical link to our universities in the region. And finally, we'll skip up to the top of that map along Mira Mesa Boulevard between I-15 and 805. You'll see 2 rapid routes connecting Mira Mesa and Sorrento Valley. One of those is our existing Rapid 237, which will get improvements to provide a higher level service, more priority, and faster speed along Mira Mesa Boulevard. We've also been working cooperatively with the city of San Diego on acquiring some right-of-way along Carroll Canyon Road for future development there. So you'll see a parallel line to Mira Mesa Boulevard with a rapid route that will operate between I-15 and I-805, and then ultimately into UTC and UCSD. Now let's talk about the rail projects. So the light rail in 2035 gets extensive improvements as well. We have a fabulous foundation with the trolleys that are out there today, but we'll be looking to speed those up. We'll be looking at all the stations to ensure that they are productive stations and warranted in those areas. We'll also be looking at where we can add double tracking in Santee. We'll be identifying areas where we can do grade separations to provide a higher level of speed and connectivity in the region. And in 2025 and 2035, I neglected to mention that all of our transit services will get increases in frequency and span of service. For simplicity's sake, all of our transit services will be operating basically at 10 minutes all day. And what we've learned with transit is that if you can offer 10-minute service all day, people can throw away their schedules. They don't need them anymore because they can walk out and they're virtually guaranteed a ride. So now let's talk about passenger rail. So what you see here is our passenger rail, and the line that comes down the coast, I-5, is our low sand corridor. And we have some big changes planned for 2035, if you will. In 2035 on the low sand corridor, the coaster will get the Del Mar Tunnel. So essentially we'll be able to finally get the coaster off the cliffs there. We'll also be looking at adding a station at UTC. And then as we continue southbound into downtown San Diego, a new station at the convention center. Increased frequencies on the coaster will allow people to access that route all day long. And then the other route that you see here on the map, and we'll start at the south portion in National City, the purple line there is our purple line. And this one is very exciting and near and dear to me. So this project in 2035 would operate from National City. It would continue up through the center of our subregion, if you will. It will serve City Heights. We currently have it at the Centerline station. And then it will go down to serve SDSU West. And then ultimately, it will travel over to Kearney Mesa to provide access to the the hospital centers, the Sharp and Children's Hospital Centers along 163 there, connect into the employment site of Kearney Mesa over to UTC, and then terminate in this phase of the plan at Sorrento Mesa. And let me just share with you real quickly that this graphic right here does not show the alignment traveling through to City Heights. Through subsequent analysis and study, we are encouraging and will be identifying that the route does travel through City Heights in the text of the regional plan. So with that, let's move to 2050. Oh, and I'm sorry, Phil, can you go back to 2035? I apologize, I forgot something. So, you know, I focused a lot on all the projects that are on the graphic, but there's some really good goods movement projects that I want to take a minute to highlight in this phase of the plan too. So we have the Harbor Drive 2.0 study. That's kind of a weird name, but essentially what it means is that we're doing pedestrian and goods movement on Harbor Drive to facilitate better access to our ports and the goods movement areas of the Harbor Drive area. We know that's a very congested area today, and that will be extensive improvements. And that'll include a high level of technology improvement as well. And then additionally, we have the Vesta Drive or the Vesta pedestrian bridge. And this has been a project long in the making. And what this will do is it'll connect the wet and dry sides of the port and the military bases out there and allow people to pass without having to access the major roadways. So those are a couple of very significant projects that I didn't want to gloss over. So 2050. In 2050, you know, the managed lanes are largely built out. So we only have a few more left. And these are our urban managed lanes that you'll see here in 2050. And these are identified, you'll see at the bottom of our corridor, we have the 905 come online. This is 2 managed lanes in each direction from I-5 all the way over to SR11. This will help facilitate, again, great access for goods movement as well as cars. But then also we have a rapid route that will travel through that area and really benefit from the inclusion of those managed lanes. We have an additional 2 lanes on the 125 operating all the way from the Otay Mesa border all the way up into Chula Vista to connect to the 54. And what I'll share with you in a minute is that we have some rapid routes that will cut across the 54 as well to make use of the managed lanes. And then all the way up at the north part of our corridors, the 56. And those get 2 managed lanes as well. And what that'll do is provide point-to-point priority access for our rapid routes that operate from I-15 over to our job center at Sorrento Valley and UTC. So those connectors are really quite essential in this portion of our study of our phase year 2050. Next slide, please. So here we have our bike lanes, and really the focus in 2050 is on providing connections to our new central mobility hub, which is going to be critical and thriving at that point. And these active transportation projects will allow for all the micro mobility and flexible fleets to operate from the central mobility hub out to our urban communities. And then additionally, we will finalize that coastal rail trail, that 44 miles is complete in this portion of the plan. And then at the south end of the graphic there, you see that we are focused on providing better connectivity to the border in this portion of the plan. Next slide. And now the rail and the light rail. So again, the purple line we showed you earlier will have a portion of this route extend down from National City all the way to San Ysidro, and then over to the cross-border terminal. That'll provide a 1-seat ride from the border up to our urban communities. And then we add a branch. So the lines branch at National City. One goes up to our urban communities, and then one comes along our I-5 coastal communities to access downtown San Diego and the Central Mobility Hub. And before I go a little bit further, when we first started the development of the regional plan, we talked about the importance of the Circle 8, if you will, for transit access. And if you look at this graphic, what you'll see is that we achieved the Circle 8. The circles and the curves aren't as prominent as we might have made with the previous version, but for rail, you don't really do curves. So you do see here that we do have a Circle 8, which will allow for an incredible amount of connectivity and access from all points of the region. As Alex and Tueri mentioned before, our east-west line comes in and it cuts across from El Cajon all the way into downtown San Diego or the Central Mobility Hub. One of the more exciting pieces of our rail network in this phase, if you look up to the north end of the map now, the coaster comes down, and as you're all aware right now, it stops in Sorrento Valley, which is just west of the freeway as the station today. It doesn't allow the best connectivity in the world, and we have to provide a lot of shuttle service to get folks up to the Mesa. So what we're looking at here in 2050 for the coaster is a branch line that will operate along from the Del Mar Tunnel and bring folks up into the Mesa to connect to the Purple Line and to a very significant mobility hub in Sorrento Valley that will provide for a large option of flexible fleets, micromobility, scooters, e-bikes, you name it. Sorrento Valley, I believe, will have those options available to us. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Phil. I'm gonna have to ask you to go back. There's so many projects. I keep kind of mixing them up. But finally, the light rail system, I can't leave that alone here. So we've basically added our double tracking, we've increased frequencies, and we've done grade separations. And so now in this portion of the plan, we're really focused on frequency and the analysis of where additional grade separations might be warranted across the system on the light rail network. So I just wanted to put that plug in. And with that, I think that wraps up most of our projects in 2050. And I'm going to turn it over to Colleen to wrap us up.
Thank you to the whole team. And we're anxious to answer all your questions. We're really pleased with the turnout today of so many board members and alternates. So I will turn it over to Supervisor Vargas, who is chairing our meeting today.
Colleen, Supervisor Vargas had a press conference she's getting back from, but let me introduce our moderator today, Lisa Gordon, who's gonna moderate the question and answers and the comment moving forward. So Lisa, take it away.
Yes, thank you very much, Hassan. Everyone, my name, good morning, first of all, thank you. I'm very honored to be with you today as your facilitator. I am Lisa Gordon, and I'm, again, just really thrilled to facilitate this very important conversation that you're having today about the Regional Transportation Plan. I always like to introduce myself as a very proud fourth-generation native San Diegan. This region means a lot to me and the generations of my family that have called San Diego home. So I really care about San Diego, the future of San Diego, and I certainly appreciate all of your great work and the thoughtful planning and decisions you are making that contribute to the quality of life of this great region. Along with being a very proud native San Diegan, I am the CEO of Lisa Inspires, and that is a training, facilitation, and consulting firm where I train and empower leaders and facilitate meetings, strategic planning sessions, and retreats for corporate government and nonprofit entities. I've had the pleasure of working with a wide variety of San Diego's boards of directors, public officials, city councils, port commission. So some of you may recognize me from my facilitation work here in San Diego. Prior to becoming a facilitator, I spent more than 25 years of in business, community government and international relations, and served on behalf of a mayor, a city, a school district, a nonprofit organization, a retail establishment, a radio station, a public agency, and thousands of small businesses. As a facilitator, my overall approach and intent is to create an environment and experience that opens dialogues, bridges gaps, honors participants' views, voices, perspectives, and creates a safe environment where thoughts and perspectives are valued and free of judgment or criticism. With this approach, outcomes include a more inclusive, open, and trusting process, proactive engagement, and a commitment to achieving goals and objectives. In short, my philosophy for facilitating is help me help you. Help me help you have a constructive, productive, and meaningful discussion that yields optimal results for all parties involved. And now for some of our ground rules for our discussion today. As your facilitator, I'm here to serve you, all of you, in a neutral capacity. My job is partially administrative, keeping us on track and on time and making our time together as effective and productive as possible. I also aim to create an environment that encourages thoughtful questioning and empathetic listening. And ultimately, this will channel all of your energy, your knowledge, your expertise into time well spent. Today's primary focus is to answer all of the questions you have about the regional plan. And we'll also have a little time then for comments following the question and answer period. To keep this discussion as organized and as efficient as possible, I'm going to ask you to first really focus on those clarifying questions that will really clarify your understanding of the projects, the programs, the systems, the technologies specified in the regional plan. And our process for upon receiving your question is to identify the appropriate staff member to address your question. Colleen Clementson will be helping in identifying appropriate staff. So we ask for your patience as they identify and find those solutions and answers for you. So I'm going to ask you, board members and advisory members, to raise your hand in just a moment to pose your question, and I will make a list of who to call upon accordingly. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of your names. And we ask that you pose your questions as succinctly as possible to respectfully allow time for questions from all of your colleagues and help us stay on track. Following our Q&A, then we will go into, with the time remaining, any comments you might have. Please note that if at any time the discussion seems to be off track or not central to the discussion, the chair of the board or I may interrupt you and ask you to clarify your question. So I'm apologizing in advance as well. So who would like to start with the first question? Can you please raise your hand if you have a question? Okay, I'm seeing, let's go with Council Member, Advisory Member Shu.
Thank you. I have kind of a simple question, which is, I don't know if there's a somewhere I can find what the abbreviations mean for project descriptions. So when I see SIS or ATDM, I can guess maybe what they mean, but I'm not really clear on that at times. So I'm thinking, I don't know if I missed somewhere in appendices that is really spelled out, as well as I can understand some of the code, like 6F to 4F plus 2ML. I think I can guess what that is. But I think it may be helpful for us to have a page in which those abbreviations are spelled out. With that, my other question would be, I know we have some real challenging goals to reduce vehicle miles traveled and implement many things. And I'm wondering if if there are some implementations that we will see in the next few years, or at least proposed in the RTIP, that we will see some quick reduction in VMT that doesn't cost a lot of money. So I'm speaking of quick managed lane solutions, as well as other concepts such as trying out congestion relief type systems, at least on a pilot basis in various locations. So I don't know if that kind of process is in the mind of SANDAG with regards to implementation of this plan, that kind of an early, quick tryout of some systems so that we can actually reduce VMT in the next 2 years or so, next 2 to 4 years, rather than looking into 2035.
Colleen?
Okay, great. Lots of questions there, Councilmember Shu. I'd like to draw your attention, first of all, just in Appendix A, on page 5, there are a number of the definitions, just kind of calling out what ATDM is and SIS. There will be a more complete glossary of all the terms that will be posted along with the draft plan when we post that this afternoon. So just wanted to make that clear. So that's the resource for the abbreviations as well as the glossary. And then in terms of the challenges in reducing VMT, implementation in the next few years to see quick reduction that doesn't cost a lot of money. I think if you look at what we're trying to do, at least by 2035, is significantly increase service on rapid bus. And that is probably one of the best ways that we're getting to reducing VMT. The second is really an expansion of the flexible fleets. And as you know, those start to come online and those can be pooled rides, shared rides. Again, that really helps us reduce VMT, vehicle miles traveled, in the early years. And are we exploring early pilot systems in the next 2 to 4 years? Absolutely. And that many of those pilot projects were actually identified in the draft 2022 budget that was before this board just last week. And those include pilot programs for the flexible fleets. And we also plan to come to the board this summer with some additional early implementation to really help increase the amount of travel options we have in the region in the near term. So hopefully that helps to answer your questions, and I'll turn it back to Lisa.
Colleen, I have a quick follow-up question to that, to one of your answers. So the region has implemented a few rapid transit systems along I-15 and so forth. Do we have information on how much VMT that has actually reduced in the ridership? So as we move on to doing these other solutions, it's helpful, I think, for communities to know whether or not they worked, whether or not moisture actually changed. And as well as with our bike lanes, you have all these other ideas, active transportation. I think it's helpful if we know that as planners, you have looked into how these changes are actually going to change mode share, because so far, you know, we haven't seen very much, even though we've been implementing a few of these projects.
Let me.
We can calculate. Oh, go ahead, Hassan.
No, I'll just say, Councilmember Shu, you're asking a great question. So I don't think these programs is going to be effective unless and until first we provide these choices. Second, we price the transportation system right. And pricing means looking at everything from the future plan, the existing lanes, the cordon pricing. Just to be very frank, this plan will have a price system by 2050, and that pricing strategies have to start right away while we're providing choices. Right now, pricing will penalize people because we don't have choices. Once these choices become online, then one has to look at pricing. It took Los Angeles 30 years to get to look at this seriously and do it right. It doesn't have to take us 30 years. So I think you're right on by saying many of the programs we had weren't as effective as anticipated when it comes to vehicle mile travel, simply because the system is not priced right.
Okay, and is that responsive to your questions, Board Member Xu?
Yes, I'll have more specific questions later, but I want to give the other board members a chance to ask their question.
Okay, next we have Board Member Hall. Mayor Hall.
Yes, in regards to Mr. Chu's question about vehicles miles traveled, we've probably seen the greatest reduction in vehicles miles traveled that we've ever seen over this last year and a half. And so does that beg the question that there might be another alternative that is a closer working relationship with business and industry as to have people still continue to work at home versus bringing them back to the office? So I think that in itself, and when you talk about, from pricing, that's pretty cheap price for us. The other question I would like to have more detail on is as Mr. Hassan has just said about, we're going to have to price this appropriately. When are we going to have those conversations, and what is that really going to look like?
Elaine or Hassan?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor Hall. Let me just address first the telecommuting issue. First of all, almost 70% of the jobs cannot be telecommuted. You have to go to site. And this awful 14 months that we're all going through difficult times. We had many of the 30% work from home. And that immediately resulted in congestion relief and reduction in vehicle mile travel. Unfortunately, though, even while most of the 30% still working from home, the vehicle mile travel is at the same level as pre-COVID. Because there is data that says when you telecommute, you end up traveling more, actually. There is data that's not conclusive yet. So I don't think the telecommuting question is going to solve our vehicle mile travel or greenhouse gas emissions, even though we would like to encourage employers to continue offering telecommute as an option, because that by itself is good because it reduces congestion in the peak, but it does not necessarily reduce vehicle mile travel or greenhouse gas emission. And the data the jury's still out on the data. But judging by our region, if you talk to Caltrans director, who I assume is here today, he will tell you right now the level of traffic, even though most of us still working from home, those who can, is back to what it was pre-COVID, and in some cases maybe worse. Address the pricing question. As you know, in this region, we do have a toll road on the 125, and we do have a managed lane, 2 lanes each direction on the I-15. As also you heard from staff today, that many of our freeways is going to see similar strategies when it comes to managed lanes. And these strategies, in some cases, it doesn't have to take a long time because it will utilize existing shoulders, existing right-of-way. So when we've been having this discussion, we're going to continue to have it. And as we move from the plan, the 30-year plan, and we start programming in what we call the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, that's when the board is going to have to make actual funding decisions to do that. So this is a gradual process, but I want to make sure that we don't mince words here, that pricing has to be part of the strategy moving forward. And we've been having discussion, we'll continue to have discussion. We have experts from around the country talk to you about it. But Mayor Hall, I think it's fair to say you're going to see in the immediately after the implementation of plan, these strategies start taking hold.
And if I could just respond for a second. And when I said about, people working from home, I realized that it was down 30%. But at the end of the day, if we could just get another 10% on a normal cycle, if we could just get an honest 10 or 15% more working from home, that's a huge number. So it was just another way of looking at how to accomplish, what we're trying to do, and to try and get business to be part of that solution. So that was my comment there. So.
Lisa, if I may
Yes.
respond to Mayor Hall. Mayor Hall, you're really good with your numbers, because just so everyone knows, today, say pre-COVID, we had about 7% of workers telecommuting. The plan that will be released today and presented to you next Friday assumes by the year 2025, so that's really just right around the corner, 10% of all workers, that will be their primary way of working, and 9% of occasional. So we are making some pretty significant assumptions in the near term on teleworking in the plan. So that will be out there. The other thing, your questions around pricing, the draft plan actually lays out the specific areas for pricing. So that will be, and I believe it's chapter 3 of the plan. So all of that information will be out there and available for this board and the public to discuss and have a good, strong debate about. And Hassan is exactly right. This whole plan, as it comes together, pricing is a key strategy. And as we heard from the panel that was part of the board presentation on March 12th, is that pricing impacts behavior more than just about anything else. So just wanted to kind of round out all of that and let you know that this is all information that will be in the draft plan, and we really appreciate your questions about it.
And in response, I mean, we know it's coming. It seems to me we would have more specifics in presentation when it comes to what the pricing is. I understand it's down in the detail, but for transparency and transparency to the community, I would think that'd be one of the top 3 talking points.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Hall. We are now going on to Board Member Huebner. Are you ready with your questions?
Yes, I am. Am I unmuted here? Yes, I am. Mine is very simple. I heard that the coaster 2035 frequencies are going to be at 10 minutes. What are they in 2025, please?
Do we need a few minutes?
Jennifer
Colleen?
is our expert.
Okay.
Jennifer is our expert.
Hi, Jennifer, expert.
Yes, good morning. Hi. So in 2025, they'll be at 30 minutes during the regular day and 60 minutes during off-peak hour.
And then, so there's a 10-year gap. When do we start? So is it nothing? That'll be all the way till 2035?
Now, actually, within the plan, we segment up, if you will, or we ratchet up through those 10 years. And so I want to say it's probably within the next 4 years that we start to really see higher levels of frequency on the coaster to get up to that 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. So, and then the Sereno Valley branch line, that is coming on board. Did you say 2035 or was that even later?
2050, that's a very complicated
yeah.
piece of infrastructure, so that won't be until 2050.
Okay, that's a disappointment. That's a really great piece of the plan. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And now we have Board Member Rodriguez, Christopher Rodriguez. Are you ready with your question?
Yes, I am. From my understanding, the underlying assumptions of this entire regional plan builds in that the ridership will be no greater than 10%. Is that correct?
Do we have the exact mode share? Is that what we're assuming is 10%?
Yeah.
Rick? We're checking on that number for you, council member. I don't know that it's.
Okay, we'll look it up.
Do we have another question? Do you have another question we can, and while we're searching for that answer?
Well, that question leads to the next. I want to hear the answer.
Okay. Colleen, do you need more time? Or shall we go to the?
We need time. They're looking into that.
Okay. All right.
For Councilmember Rodriguez's question, our goal has been, and we always said in previous presentation, that if we get to 10%, we will consider that a success. That's going from 2 2% now to 10%. I don't know the exact number, the staff will get it, but yeah, let us assume it is, we meet our goal of 10%. Please ask your follow-up question if this is based on that.
Yeah, no. And next question is based on the pricing. When I read through some of the other underlying assumptions for VMT cost, 2 cents was used per vehicle mile traveled. How did staff come up with that number, and why not use 1 cent? Or a half a cent or no cents? How do they come up with the 2 cents?
Danielle or Colleen?
I'll start and then we can have Danielle come up and clarify that. You know, we have to start somewhere. And so we started with the 1 cent and 2 cent. Additional work has to be done to determine exactly what that number would be. So this is a preliminary approach. It helps us to achieve, you know, through the modeling effort, it gives us a sense of how it addresses VMT, how it impacts travel behavior, but that whether it's 1 cent, 2 cent, or 3 cent, again, is going to require a lot more work and study to determine.
Got it. Okay, so I have a lot of questions. It seems like those two you're not ready to answer, and that's fine.
I think if I had it right, looking at the table that is going to be in Appendix T with the report that we'll post today, I think we're at 11% by 2035. And then it goes up to, what's the number for 2050, Phil?
Yeah, try to jump.
12, and then it jumps up to 12% by 2050.
Colleen, we can answer the mode share question.
Do you want the answer to the mode share questions? We've got the expert modeler ready to do that.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
Yes. So in 2035 for transit work trips peak period, we have 11.1%. And in 2050, we go up to 12.6%.
And so that's your assumptions that your targets. I should.
Those are the outcomes from the activity-based model. So after we run the transportation model, these are the results that come out of the model.
Got it. So your assumptions are that ridership is going to increase from 2% to 11% in the next, 14 years. That is overwhelmingly positive thinking. Like, rub that off on me, please. Because the more I surround myself with bureaucracy, the more I see that, they set big goals and they never, ever, ever happen. Meanwhile, taxpayers are spending, they're paying the bill. All efforts in the past, we've already talked about that, have failed coming out of the San Diego region on what we've told voters. And so I don't want to do it again. I don't think you guys want to do it again. I don't agree. And I would really like to have an answer on how the heck you think North County residents, East County residents are going to go from a 2% ridership to an 11% ridership in 15 years. That's impossible.
Councilmember Rodriguez, first of all, let's just make sure this is the peak commute trips, not the all day mode split. But let me just say, might impossible seems to you, but we have people who is really qualified. We have models that be nationally peer reviewed. Neither I or you or anybody on this board are really equipped to say that what they're doing is not right. I believe my staff. I believe the tools. I believe the scientists who did these tools. I believe the data that's used for this. And we are absolutely want to achieve these goals that we set, but these are more than goals. These are about investment. Now, the question is this board in this region ready to move this plan forward? If they are, I think the goals can be achieved. If they're not, they cannot be achieved. So these numbers will be met after the region invests in the system we put forth. But I believe the staff and I believe the tools, and I'm definitely not qualified myself to judge them otherwise.
No, and this isn't about judging. This is about numbers. This is about very, very important decisions that we have to make.
But
And there's a
judging it.
individual behind there, and we as a board, we need to be provided with, okay, if this individual is making these assessments, show me where they've made these assessments in other areas, jurisdictions where that proved to be accurate. Otherwise, we are hoping this will happen.
You are judging, sir.
Council-
Okay, excuse me.
Answer your question.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Go ahead.
I just want to let you know that I'm back. I apologize. I mean, I've been back for a while, but I think so. Is there anything else, Councilmember Rodriguez? Otherwise, we're going to move on.
Yes, I just asked it, and if you didn't hear, I can repeat it.
No, I did hear it. We don't have it for you, so we're going to get it for you, and then we're going to move on now. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Rodriguez, may I answer? So when you look at these assumptions of mode shift, those are coming out of the model. So it's what's happening is that we are looking at what the transportation network may look like in 2035. We're going to be adding 36 rapids by 2035. And so they may not all be in North County. They're all over the place. I think the map behind me shows you where they're going to be. And those are where this mode shift is happening. Okay, so it doesn't just happen in individual areas. It happens where these rapids are. So there's a big investment in the plan in the early years in rapids to give people choices. As we talked about in the introduction, the plan is to have about 10,000 different connection points between these different systems. And so that will allow people to move from one to another easily. And so that's why you start to see mode shift, because we're starting to provide a true option to driving by having these frequent rapid buses. In addition to that, when you talk about the 2 cent or the half cent or the 1 cent VMT, we model these things. It's an input that goes into the model, and VMT fees generate behavioral change. So the more it costs to drive, the fewer people will drive those extra miles. And so there are equations in the model that look at that. The 2 cent VMT fee that we looked at seemed to be about the optimal rate that we would be charging these managed lanes, for instance, so that all vehicles, so that we could achieve the goals that we're looking for in terms of GHG reduction and in terms of being able to reduce the vehicle miles traveled. So that's where those are coming from. These are embedded equations in the model. Thank you very much.
Understood. Is there another jurisdiction that you could compare us to that have done these and have shown those riderships as a real world example?
Colleen.
Danielle Coachman has been our expert on pricing and has done a lot of work on kind of the best practices. So if you can share what you have, Danielle, that would be great.
Sure. So we did a bunch of best practice research as we kicked off this effort, looking at the various different pricing strategies around the country that are in different phases of planning and implementation. And the 2 cents was kind of right in line with what a lot of major metropolitan areas are either assuming, planning for, working on implementing. There are pilots that are active around the country already. We have the state of California is doing their own pilot, and then they already have implementation on a road user charge in Oregon as well. And comparing to some of our neighbors around the state for what assumptions are included in the regional plan, 2 cents is, kind of right in line with what other people are looking at. In the LA area with SCAG, they've included 2.5 cents per mile, and about the same as well in the Sacramento area. So that was kind of the basis that we did to do this initial kind of assessment of what it would be. And of course, the modeling and the GHG reduction was a key part of it. And so as Colleen mentioned, we have a lot more planned. We have money in the budget for the study next year as we work on refining this and figuring out exactly what the right amount is for our region, because it's a powerful tool that can help us accomplish multiple policy goals. So really working with the board and stakeholders to determine how we want to prioritize those different goals, and then designing a pricing system that can help us achieve that with a lot more detailed study.
Thank you, Danielle. And Supervisor Vargas, just to conclude to Councilmember Rodriguez's question, Yes, there is other cities in the US that actually had success stories like Houston, Texas. While transit ridership has been declining in the country in the last few years, but LA went from 1.5% to 6%. So there is definitely, we're not as dense as LA. But the message I want to give.
Hold on.
Oh,
So LA went to 6% in how
We're
long?
gonna,
Let me
excuse
finish.
me.
Let me finish.
Okay.
I am really tired of you coming here and try to tell the staff that you don't believe their number. They're the experts. You have to respect that. I don't want you.
If they're the experts, then I want expert answers back
Okay,
with real
we're gonna
world proof.
we're gonna have to move on in the interest of time. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that staff will be able to follow up with you later. Any further questions for this? I see that Mayor Raquel Vasquez, Board Member Vasquez, you have some questions?
Yes, I do have a question. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm really glad to see that the direct access ramp on the 94 to the 125 is included in the regional plan. Honestly, I kind of believe that 2 managed lanes on the 125 between the 125 and the 94 and the 8 are not enough. There's major congestion that occurs daily on the freeway, and especially during peak travel hours, but also on the weekend. And traffic backs up. It's really a bottleneck. Simply because in this specific area, it goes from 4 to 3 lanes, and this occurs in both directions. So I'd like to know, how can we include these managed lanes in this area and improve the flow of traffic as we move forward with the 2021 regional plan?
Colleen?
Yes, so excellent question there, Mayor. And I'm going to call on Alex Estrella to talk about how we're approaching that really important congestion issue in the region. Alex?
Hi, that was a great question. One of the things behind the managed lane concept is that we're obviously going to provide mobility choices of providing priority treatment, as you're well aware, to transit and non-SUV vehicles. But to complement the managed lane concept is there's going to be a technological component to it. We recognize that when we develop a managed lane system, including the direct access ramps, and that's something that, for example, we've done on the I-15. But in this RTP, we're complemented with technology. So technology, what we call active transportation demand management technology, allow us to use innovative technologies to really kind of reduce the impact of congestion. So when we think of congestion, you think about recurring congestion, which is kind of the day-to-day, which you mentioned. And then you also have non-recurrent congestion during major incidents. But with the technology, allow us to address both components of congestion. So there's going to be technology, there's going to be infrastructure, for example, information, providing more information when there's an incident up ahead, or when there's a diverging point when you're transitioning from one freeway to the other. That technology with advanced sensor technology will be able to tell the motoring public to say, hey, you may need to reduce your speeds and therefore you may need to transition. And this is key in the RTP plan because in previous plans, when we built a managed lane network or address congestion, we would mainly focus on spot specific areas. So you would essentially kind of move that bottleneck or that congestion point just another part of the corridor, but through the system of managed lanes along with technology allow us actually to address whether it's recurring or non-recurring congestion from holistic perspective. So if you're making your trip with managed lanes from one end of the corridor or the region and jumping off to another managed lanes corridor with technology, then the idea there is you have flexibility. We'll provide access and mobility choices to transit. And also we'll be able to address congestion, again, recurrent and non-congestion technology.
Mayor Vasquez, does this sufficiently respond to your questions?
Yes, it does. And I'd really like for more careful consideration to move forward as we continue on with the process of developing the 2021 regional plan. It is an area of concern, an area where we can visually see what the traffic impacts are today. And the question is, how can we ensure in the future, while we cannot predict the future, but how can we ensure that traffic throughout that area will flow smoothly in addition to managed lanes?
Okay, Colleen, do you have a response to that, or is that just your comment?
I think that's a great comment. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have board member Rebecca Jones and Mayor Jones. Are you ready with your questions?
I hope so. I have notes everywhere, so I'm trying to figure them all out. Okay, so we talked early on about the mobility hubs and how they're vital as part of the discussion, but there's no discussion specifically where they're located. So in my city, I have a school district that has been unable to find a large piece of land. So I'm wondering how we can make a decision on something that doesn't have any specific detail, being that it's so vital to that decision. So that's one question. So if you want me to move on and come back to that, I can certainly do that if you want to find the right person to answer that.
Colleen, are we ready for the response on that, or shall we move to the next question?
I'd be happy to respond to that. So thank you for the question, Mayor Jones. And I think the whole board knows the importance of land use and transportation planning coming together. And we did go through a process working with all of your planning directors to identify the mobility hub areas. And these are considered very rough areas. Further refinement is absolutely required for SANDAG to work with you as, members of your elected bodies in the cities and the county. And we've actually put in the plan, and you'll see this when the plan posts, but a significant amount of funding, and actually it's also listed in Appendix A, to help do the planning that's necessary to do exactly what you're saying. So in every mobility hub probably has its own special characteristics, whether it's an employment focused area or a higher density residential area. It may be around the school. It might be around Cal State San Marcos, for instance. So further planning around these areas, it's very similar to how we have thought about our smart growth areas for more than a decade in this region. So these are areas that are either already dense in your communities or have been identified as opportunity areas in your local plans, and we would just be building upon that with you.
But back to the question, I mean, if there's no piece of land to put a mobility hub, how do you actually bring all of those resources together in one spot? That's the part I'm really trying to get at.
Gotcha.
I don't understand that.
It's not a single spot. These are areas where multiple transportation options come together. So it's not, everything would be, the idea is that we bring transit to where the activity centers are. It's not about scraping a particular area or finding an acre of land or 2 acres. It's more about how do we bring the transportation system in to support the land uses that are already there and the land use that's anticipated going forward. So this could be thinking about your local streets and roads. How do those become more walkable? And that's happening already throughout the San Diego region. We see many examples of that. So even the traffic circles that I know that you've been working on in San Marcos, and that was a SANDAG Smart Growth Incentive Program grant that we worked on with your staff. And I think we did something similar in Vista. So these are examples of how we sort of retrofit the existing area, support you in your local planning efforts. And then again, it's not about, having to have a certain amount of land available for a mobility hub. It's about how we bring these pieces together within the existing community.
Well, but if you look at San Marcos specifically, we're very hilly and we're very spread out. So we've got 25 miles that is square miles that is literally in all different parts. I mean, way out in Twin Oaks Valley, and then over by Palomar College. It's very spread out. So I hope that when the plan is posted today, that there's more detail and that there's plenty of time to go through it, because I can tell you for sure, my residents, it's going to be a big sell for them to even imagine how they could possibly, get to a mobility hub that is near the university, for instance, or near City Hall, because a lot of them are pretty far away. So anyway, to catch transit. But I'll move on. So hopefully that'll just be included in the detail today. So when we're talking about charging drivers to drive on the roads, the specific detail on the charging the drivers, the assumptions are in the reduction of the greenhouse gases, right? The emissions, how is that reduced? So I've asked this question previously, what roads is Sandag talking about within local communities, specifically in my city? I would be asking for, are we looking at charging? And then also which freeway non-HOV lanes currently that are here today, are we planning on charging people to drive on? Because I've gotten that question a lot lately. So will there be that detail, or can you maybe shed some light on that right now?
Okay, so just to kind of start, the per mile fee is really a replacement for the gas tax as we move to more, fuel efficient vehicles and electric vehicles.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's separate. The VMT is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual dynamic pricing, however we want to call that, congestion pricing. There's been a lot of, sorry, I just didn't want you to go on and, yeah.
Value pricing is another term that's used.
Okay.
And so really it's envisioned that the entire system, the entire highway system would be priced. Local streets and roads may or may not become part of that. I don't know what assumptions, Alex, we made about pricing on local streets and roads. In Appendix A, you'll see a number of regional arterials that are important in terms of, mobility in the region. But at this point, I don't know if we made any assumptions. Can someone pull down a mask so I see your lips? No assumptions have been made about pricing on local streets and roads in the plan as we release it today.
Okay, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm very confused, because if we're planning on reducing the greenhouse gases by a certain amount and we're charging people to achieve that, how could we not have some sort of assumption attached to that? That doesn't make any sense to me. And to Hassan's point, I certainly am not a traffic engineer. I don't know these things. I'm just asking as a regular citizen, because that's what I am. I mean, I happen to be elected, but I am a regular citizen.
Good question, Mayor Jones. Let me just be more specific. Regarding your question about there will be no HOV lanes in the system by 2035. It's going to be either high occupancy toll lanes like we have in the I-15. And carpoolers and rapid bus will go free. Everybody else who uses the road will pay.
Wait. Sorry, I'm sorry. So people will pay to drive on all of the highway system and then on the arterial roads?
I'm talking about the freeway system now. I'm going to get to that.
The freeway. Oh, okay. On all of the freeway lanes, people are going to pay if you're not in a 3 or more, or an high. Okay.
Correct. Everyone will pay, and gradually by 2050, every lane in every freeway will be priced. That's what this plan assumes.
I'm sorry, I missed something. I thought you said by 2035 that all of the lanes would be on the highways.
I'm talking about HOV. There's no HOVs. There's hot lanes, high occupancy toll lanes. By 2050, every lane, existing lane or in every freeway will be priced. So it's a gradual thing. But Mayor Jones, I do appreciate your question. You're asking for details that a 30-year plan doesn't have. Yes, we do deploy pricing strategies, but the plan right now is, and the draft plan that we're going to release this week, won't have all the detail you want. But as we move in the implementation of the plan, we would develop what's called the TIP, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, that will have all the detail, because we have to identify funding. But I just want to make sure we don't mince word here on pricing. The freeway system, there won't be what we call traditionally HOV, high occupancy vehicle lanes anymore. By 2035, every lane that carpoolers 3+ or buses go free, the rest of the drivers will pay a fee. As we move beyond 2035, every existing lane of every freeway is going to be priced. Every part of the system will be priced. So that's what the draft plan is gonna put forth, that we're releasing next week.
And
so the
Lisa,
pricing strategy.
If
One
we
moment,
have
please,
more
Colleen.
detail. Okay, we
Go
have
ahead,
more
Colleen.
detail. We have more detail for the mayor, and I just want Danielle to lay out specifically the assumptions that we have in the plan. So specific assumptions about pricing on the roadway system, and then the difference between pricing the system and the VMT fee. So if you could explain that for the mayor, I think that might really help to answer her question.
So as Colleen mentioned, we have layers within the pricing strategy. So the first, which we've been talking about, is the managed lane system, where the entire network has managed lanes similar to what you see on I-15 today, where there are general purpose lanes and then the managed lanes, which are either HOV, 3 or more people, or they're priced dynamically exactly how it's done on I-15 today. So just taking that model and adding it to all the highways in the system. And then the next component is the regional road user charge, which would be 2 cents per mile. That's the assumption that's included in the plan that needs to be fleshed out more through the study that we have that's going to kick off in a few months. And so that is, for every mile driven, whether you're on a general purpose lane on the freeway, whether you're on a road, an arterial, or a managed lane, that would be layered on top of what you're paying, in a managed lane if you're not an HOV, to bypass congestion. And that could be collected in a number of different ways. So that's something that's also to be determined. We would need to kind of figure out what the best way to do that to, make sure that we're preserving privacy. But there's been discussions about that could be done through the registration process where people pay annually. It could be done, just with a bill. It could be done leveraging NextOS to have specifics about exactly, what facilities they're using. So there's a number of options for doing them, but those are the layers of pricing for just regular people that are driving vehicles. And then there is, just to be clear, one more strategy that's included, which is per trip fee for ride hailing companies like Uber and Lyft. And now this is something that's currently being done in a number of places around the country. San Francisco just started. It's been years that they've been doing this fee in Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Boston, and a number of other major metropolitan areas. And that's really to kind of mitigate the impacts from those specific modes that do a lot of driving around to pick up passengers and extra VMT that comes from those modes.
So just a quick follow up on that. So the managed lanes and highway fees are on the highways, and the user charge will be charged on all vehicles, whether it's gas or electric, and whether it's actually contributing to greenhouse gases or not, correct? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Okay, yes. And then all standard lanes will be converted to managed lanes by 2035 on the highways?
No.
By 2050?
No. There are always general purpose lanes in addition to managed lanes on the freeway network, similar to what you see on I-15 today. Depending on the actual facility, some have 2 lanes in each direction, some have 1 lane in each direction, and some have a total of 3 lanes with a movable barrier that you can, have in the peak flow direction.
Okay, that's what our director just said, that all lanes by 2035 would be converted to, okay. I'm confused. I wrote it down. I did. I wrote it down. Okay.
He clarified at the end that it's all high occupancy vehicle lanes. So like currently we are building high occupancy vehicle lanes on Interstate 5 in the North Coast Corridor, and those would be converted from HOV lanes to hot lanes. The general purpose lanes will always stay general purpose lanes, but we will add another option for people that want to pay to bypass traffic, or people that are 3 or more passengers.
So the general purpose lanes are not going to be converted, because I could have sworn too that I saw that in the original plan.
You correct me. You heard me.
Okay. On the 78.
Not by 2035, but by 2050.
That's what I just said.
By 2050, all lanes will be priced.
All lanes on all freeways. And that's what I just asked, and I was given a different answer. So I'm just saying, I'm trying not to be confused. However, I keep getting all these different answers.
What Daniel just explained, by 2035, we're going to have the high occupancy toll lanes on the freeway. The general purpose and will continue to be free. By 2050, all lanes will be priced in some form or another.
That's what I clarified. Okay, all right. And I'm trying to figure out if I have any more questions.
Can you?
Yeah, I do.
One more, and then we'll go on to.
So to the current cost in 2020 dollars, I think that was 777 billion. That includes. My question is, does that include the current cost increases in construction costs? And then also, why didn't we project the 2035 or 2050 dollars for better accuracy?
I'm not sure we know what's the 770 billion?
177 billion. If I said it wrong, my apologies. Okay. 170, isn't that the number? 177 billion?
No. So the whole plan is 163 billion.
63. Okay.
163 billion. And that's all been in 2020 dollars for the reason of really truly just simplification. To project, it's once we start to project out to other years, there's so many different factors. We know no matter what, it's going to be wrong. And the other reason we use 2020 dollars is it was a way to compare all the previous plan investments. So when we did that comparison for you at the March 12th meeting, we compared the 2015 plan, took that to 2020 dollars to what we have proposed here in the 2021 plan with 2020 dollars, just as a way to be able to compare that.
Appendix B does.
So my follow-up questions that I already stated are, does this include the current cost increases in construction that we're experiencing right now, 400% increases in many things? I'm assuming not.
Our assumptions for using 2020 dollars was based on the information we had in 2020 about construction costs. So all of the cost estimates that you see in Appendix A for every single one of the projects were based on the latest information we have available about construction costs, labor costs, land acquisition costs. All of that went into calculating these numbers.
So not for today,
but if 2020.
Okay, so not for today, but if maybe staff could follow up with me and let me know in the 2035 and 2050 dollars what those projections were in our last transportation plan, because I mean, we never were able to give everything. And how are we planning to actually make up those differences? I'm assuming that we'll continue to add fees on top of what we already have. So, but if you could follow up with me what that strategy will be, because we know that 163 billion, my apologies for 177 billion. I had read that somewhere previously.
177, so.
I'm sorry.
I said at first, I thought you said 777 billion. So that's
Oh,
why
if I
was
said that,
confused.
that
So-
was me misstated. Yeah, no, that would be me misstating. Okay. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
2 minutes.
We do have some additional information. I don't know, Lisa, if you want us to answer that, but there will be more detail in Appendix V that will be part of the plan that does apply some escalation rates. That is one of the things that we have to do for federal compliance. So there will be more information on that. We'd be happy to sit down with you and go through that once that information is posted.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And thank you. Yes, and so you can do some follow-up with Mayor Jones on that. We have lots of hands here, so we are now going to go to Dwight Warden.
Thank you for a great presentation. My question is, does the plan distinguish between clean vehicle miles traveled and carbon-based vehicle miles traveled? For congestion management, I guess a mile traveled is a mile traveled, but for achieving our climate goals, there's a big difference between clean miles and not clean miles. And specifically with regard to the 2 cents or whatever the pricing model is, does the plan make this distinction? Thanks.
Shall I go ahead, Lisa?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor, excellent question. The laws that we have to comply with do not distinguish types of VMT. So it's vehicle miles traveled. That's what we have to comply with. And that is California Senate Bill 375. I know Allison Wood on our SANDAG team has really been the expert on this and can probably clarify the importance also of the clean vehicles and how that does help us achieve our goals above and beyond just meeting the VMT requirements.
Hi, good morning. So for calculating the VMT associated with electric vehicles, we use the state's tool called MFAC, their emission factor tool, to help us understand that breakdown in the fleet of what's a gas-powered vehicle versus an electric vehicle, so that we do have that understanding, although we can't take credit for all of the EVs that we anticipate on the road. Beyond that, we do have an in-house tool that we've developed called our off-model calculator for electric vehicles, so that as we invest in charging infrastructure and invest in incentives for EVs to go beyond what the state is doing, we can take some credit for those investments.
Thank you for the answer, and I guess maybe at some point we should take a look at the state law and see if it's feasible to get it revised. We should be able to treat clean miles differently from dirty miles. So thanks for the answer.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. I see that we have questions from a couple people that have already spoken and have asked some questions. So I do see your hands, and I will still keep you here in line to pose those questions, but I wanted to go to, let's see, Gil Cabrera. Are you ready with your question?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. One I think is probably premature, but I just want to make sure on the projects listed on exhibit or Appendix A, is there, or do we have any sense of prioritization yet as to those? Those are listed by project number, so I'm not clear if we have any priority built into it. And then on top of that, is it possible to have information in terms of whether or not any of those projects, I assume many of them are, independent or interconnected? That is, that you can't do one without the other, that type of understanding. So we know that, if you do one project, you got to do these other three, or before you do this one, you have to do these other four.
Great question. So prioritization of projects, what we have in Appendix A is 2035 and 2050. One of the things that we talked about are the corridor studies that we're doing. This is where we get into more detail about the specific projects. And that's where there's a finer grain of assumptions and prioritization made. So that's where that happens. In terms of projects that rely on one another, Absolutely. So as we look at, let's say, improvements on State Route 78, where we're adding managed lanes, since we're doing that work in that same time frame, we also look at the connectors that need to be made. So adding the managed lanes and then adding the connectors to I-5 and I-15, then it makes sense to do all of that at the same time. So that is how projects become linked in the plan.
Mr. Cabrera, do you have any follow-up questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let us now go on to Mr. Stuart Halpern, please.
Hey, thank you. When I've listened to the reading of the entirety of the Transnet ordinance at last week's board meeting, what really jumped out to me is that the ordinance spoke extensively to outputs. In other words, the projects to be built, but had little specificity on outcomes. In other words, the benefits to the public. And there's practically no mention of performance metrics. In the last 2 cycles of the ITOC Triennial Performance Audits focused on that issue also. Today's very impressive presentation mentioned a few important outcome metrics, but my question is, do you already have or will there be a master schedule of all the targeted outcome goal metrics to help us translate this really impressive plan into actual benefits to the public? And if so, is there a plan to be any kind of follow-up to this workshop at this point that'll present some focus on that? Thank you.
Colleen?
Yes, so thank you for that question, Mr. Halpern. Again, we have so many appendices to the plan. So the plan is 3 chapters, and I think we have close to 30 appendices with detail that we'll be posting today. And Appendix T is dedicated to the performance of the system. So you'll see the outcomes exactly like you're talking about. What are the results? What are the mode shares? How many people will have access to high-speed transit? There are multiple performance measures that are laid out in Appendix T, and we very much look forward to talking about those outcomes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and now we are going to move on. Mr. Halpern, does that conclude your questions?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back with Mayor Matt Hall, Board Member Hall.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go back to where Mr. Rodriguez from Oceanside kind of left off and talking about data and making sure that when we read the data, we all have clear understanding and what the trends are, not only here locally, but statewide and nationwide. And it seems that I remember about 4 or 5 years ago at a board retreat in Verona, Mr. Husan came and we talked in detail about the ridership in California and how it was trending downward in a significant way. And when we look at, national data, transit is trending downward in a very significant way. Even here locally, the ridership on the coaster is less today than it was in 1996. So when we go ahead and invest, we want to make sure that not only are we building something that's feasible, but that the trends in this country are going to support that, most importantly here regionally. And one of the things that I was so impressed about with Mr. Husan in his talk in Verona was about technology and the new vehicles of tomorrow and how they were going to lead the future. And what we haven't seen is any real reports or information on that. It was extremely important in that Sandag retreat, but I haven't seen any of that, given in any of these briefings. So for me, I would really like to have more information on where that type of technology is going to take us. And I know people, every time I talk about I-5, people automatically think about those are lanes. It's a space in which we're going to move people one way or another. So part of what I'd like to know is within that space, what will be the most advantageous way for us to keep people moving from point A to point B?
Colleen or Hassan?
So if I just jump in here for a minute. So Mayor Hall, we did a workshop specifically on technology with the board on April 9th. And we have a technology white paper that was part of that presentation. And I would just love for a minute if we could call on Antoinette Meyer to just give kind of a high level overview of the contents of that and how important technology is in the success of this plan. You're absolutely right, Mayor Hall, that technology is the big game changer in transportation. We have to absolutely maximize the technology available to us today and what's available in the future so that we can optimize the transportation system. So if we can call on Antoinette to just kind of give you a big picture overview of that, we are happy to send you a link to the detail in that report as well. So Antoinette.
Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, happy to do it. So Mayor Hall, the Emerging Technology White Paper really talks about all of the different trends that have affected transportation over the last decade, and then our projections for what might happen in the future in terms of technology. I don't think any of us ever anticipated that we would be hailing a ride from our phone 10 years ago, and our previous regional plans didn't have any assumptions about that. None of us expected that scooters and bikes that were shared that you could book from your phone would show up on our streets overnight. So we've really made every attempt possible to contemplate what the technology changes are going to be and how we should be incorporating technology into the transportation system in a way to help us meet our goals. We actually put together an industry panel. We called it our Vision Advisory Panel, and we brought forward several members of the Vision Advisory Panel at that presentation on April 9th that Colleen referenced. These are experts in wireless communications, auto manufacturing, mobility, automation, connected vehicle technologies. They really helped to validate the assumptions that we were making in the plan around timing, types of technology that we should be accounting for, and what we might expect as an outcome of investing in technology. The next OS, which we call the brain of the entire transportation system, that really will help us to manage the system in such a way where we can make the most out of what's there today and meet a lot of our goals without having to do major roadway expansion. So we'll send you the Emerging Tech White Paper, and we're also happy to sit down with you and talk with you about any of those concepts.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Mayor Lisa, if I may, just Mayor Hall, and I absolutely believe today, as I believed back then in Verona when I made the statement. Now, when the transit ridership declined, just so you know, I'm not shocked why the transit ship is declining in the country or here in San Diego or Los Angeles. And the reason is we have transit that, buses that goes every 2 hours and stop service at 5 o'clock at night. And we have a system that's not priced right. And this 5 big moves, this plan said we're going to do all of this right. Therefore, ridership, we think based on the modeling and data, is going to be what it is. And again, I'm not the expert, but I do believe the experts and the staff that we have here that doing this work.
I understand that we have Ray Major, if you had a follow-up response on this.
Thank you, Lisa. I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the VMT fee and see if I can't tie together what Danielle was saying with what Hassan was saying. When we talk about a VMT fee is something that is there to help us, in some cases, change behavior. Okay, and because the more it costs to drive, the fewer people are going to drive. And so the VMT fee comes in 2 flavors. There's a state VMT fee and there's a local VMT fee. Currently, we have that set at 2 cents in the model. However, we can change the VMT fee for the local road, for the local free charge, and we can increase that to 2 cents or 3 cents or 4 cents. Okay, and that is charging all of the lanes in the system, because what that would do is it would impose a fee on drivers who are using the general purpose lanes. So when Hassan says that all the lanes are going to be charged, the way that they are charged is through a local VMT fee that would be determined at some time in the future that would help mitigate how much traffic is going on general purpose lanes versus the high occupancy toll or on transit. So that's where the confusion kind of is. It's a different type of charge, but it comes in terms of charging all lanes using local VMT fees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ray. We're going to now go back to Board Member Shu with his follow-up, or you have some follow-up questions?
Yes, I have a comment or two, and that may help us a bit. Thank you, Lisa. You know, I have some experience challenging SANDAG staff on data and their studies over the last 10 years. So I kind of, in one way, applaud my fellow board members now in doing such. But when I did challenge them, I try to make sure that I've done some homework, or we actually paid for other experts, other modelers, and looked at other plans in the country and in California, and came back with comments that came with another area of expertise rather than simply looking at the plan itself and coming with comments right off the cuff. And I'll give you an example. With the VMT, the state of California calculates an anticipated amount of electrical vehicle conversion to come up with what a VMT reduction is needed in order to reach our greenhouse gas reductions. So that's already figured in, the amount of electric vehicles. The problem was that at that time, SANDAG was anticipating extremely high conversion to electric vehicles, and that was just uncalled for, and that's what made their previous RTPs actually made it in error. So I think it is important for us to challenge our data and information, but we should do so from a position of expertise and with other plans or other planners that have weighed in on looking at SANDAG's plan. With regards to vehicle fees, I think that's a huge challenge for us as a community. But I want to remind everyone that the American Tax Foundation years ago showed that drivers are not paying their way. And in fact, it is not a fee, it is a recovery. For decades, drivers have been on welfare and are continuing to get benefits from other parts of our public funding to be able to drive. So this issue of starting to paying for miles is actually a cost recovery for our transportation system. It is not a new fee. So I think that's important for us to phrase it in that way as we go into our community to explain how these freeway lanes or whatever may have a cost if you're on it, or a mileage fee. So I have one last kind of a question, which is, you know, these transportation plans, often we concentrate on moving people from point A to point B. That's traditionally what a transportation plan is. But in this plan, by law, we also have to address equity issues, health benefits. That's what AB 805 pointed out. We want to see the health impacts. So I hope in some way that we can start quantifying the outcomes that was mentioned earlier in terms of health impacts in our communities, some of the most impacted communities. That is a charge of this transportation plan, as well as within our own equity statement that we made, economic justice. Who's paying for what? And to me, that includes everything from not only road fees, but possibly looking at parking fees. In fact, that was a mitigation measure that was in previous plans that by law, the plans have to include. Planning or parking structure fees, unbundling the cost of parking so that the public, the general public, isn't helping to support drivers. It should be funded by drivers, not by the general public. That is the issue of parking. So that's kind of an economic justice issue. So that leads to my last question, which is, how are we going to weave in these other goals, things that we want to achieve in this plan besides moving people from one place to another? How are we going to clean the air and help our communities be economically more feasible and help our entire community? Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Shu. Colleen, do you have a response?
just a few things to clarify. Again, getting to one of the appendices, Appendix H will get to a lot of the equity performance that you're talking about there, Councilmember Shu. I think parking and parking pricing, there are assumptions that absolutely went into the modeling about parking pricing, and all those assumptions have been laid out. And I think that's in an appendix as well. That will be in Appendix T. So lots to come here for your information, and we look forward to digging into more detail with all of you on any questions you have once those details are made public.
Okay.
If I could just make a comment. Thank you, Colleen. It just means we're going to have a lot more homework to do when the rest of the whole plan comes out. So thank you very much for letting me know that I have to plan out the, a lot of time to look at the entire plan when it comes out next week.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Shu. Colleen, was there any, it appears that we have reached the end of our question time and no other hands are raised. Colleen, was there any follow-up that you wanted to provide?
Lisa, if I may, before Colleen provide the conclusion, and I just want to thank all the board and policy committee members for asking excellent questions. But let me just make it very clear to my board members. My team and I are ready to answer any question, go to any place to answer questions, but I would really appreciate it if board members give the staff the respect that they deserve and not make a statement like, I don't believe that, this is never gonna happen. I think these people work hard. These people have degrees and went to schools and have training. Doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. We do make mistakes, like Councilmember Jack Shu said, you can challenge anything you want. We don't put anything out just because we feel certain ways. We put it because of methodologies and models and data that we have. Is it perfect? No. Is it an exact science? No. This is a process. And so for me, when you can ask any question, you can tell me anything you want. You can look me in the face and swear as much to me, but not to my team. That's a red line for anybody to come and criticize their work. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the questions. And with that, I'll turn it to Colleen if she had any questions.
Go ahead, Colleen. Any follow-up?
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate all the questions. We recognize the importance on the pricing discussion. We look forward to digging into the details with all of you. This afternoon, we will be posting the staff report and the draft plan and all of its appendices to the Sandag website, sending that out to all of the board members, and that's in line with us posting everything 1 week before we have the discussion with you next Friday on the 28th. So we look forward to the continued dialogue. We appreciate all of your questions. This plan is extremely important to the San Diego region and deserves a full discussion. So that's that concludes my wrap up for this.
All right. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, staff. I will now turn it back to Chair Vargas.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to say thank you to Lisa for doing such a fabulous job moderating, a very healthy discussion about next steps. And so I also wanted to say thank you to Hassan for ensuring that we, it's obviously everybody can have questions. It's really important, but respect of our team members who have worked so hard is such an important piece of being civil in the work that we do every day. And so thank you for that, Hassan. And thank you to the team for doing an exceptional job. This is new territory for many folks. And as we're trying to make sure that we are balancing, and I really appreciated Councilmember Chu's comments, But I think as we balance out, really looking at this from a holistic perspective, so that equity and public health and really creating opportunities for our communities to have access to transportation and investing, because for so many years we haven't invested in an infrastructure that is equitable for our communities. I'm excited about this and the direction that we're heading. So again, the staff is ready to answer any questions that anyone would have. What I'm going to do next is going to go ahead and ask if there are any public comments on this item before we wrap up. Francesca, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have quite a few public comments. I see four hands so far. More are going up now, so I'll just continue to call folks. First, we'll start with Jonathan Yellen, who will be followed by Mike Bullock.
Hi, thank you. Just want to make sure that you can hear me okay.
We can, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to the Sandag staff and everyone that supports them in putting together a fantastic presentation today that's providing us with a lot more information about this very important document that's coming out. I'll ask it as a question or make it as a comment. I'll look forward to seeing the draft plan that comes out when it does and read that eagerly. I want to just ask whether there's any guidance that Sandag could provide today in advance of the draft coming out as to how private funding is going to be part of the financing plan for this build out of very important projects. I note that in the prior plan, the 2019 plan, of the 100 and something billion that was allocated, only about 3 billion was coming, a very small amount was coming from private financing. And with all of this focus on the cost of these very important projects, and obviously limited public dollars available in the current environment and going forward, if again, Sandag could provide any comments to us about what the thinking is in terms of private financing from private developers for a lot of these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see 6 additional hands up, Chair. Next, we're going to Mike Bullock, who will be followed by Carolina.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for the presentation. And I'm so happy that Sandag is moving in the direction it's moving in compared to what it was. I really want to talk about road use charge, but I better not, because I'm not going to be able to talk too long, and I better focus on parking. But there is a lot of confusion about road use charge. I'm charged to drive my internal combustion engine car, even when I move it on my own driveway, and let alone neighborhood streets, arterials, and everywhere. My Tesla, on the other hand, I'm not charged at all. And so in either case, I am a welfare recipient, and I don't deserve it. I have a very nice pension. So I just want, I'd love to say more about that, but I think I better focus on the parking, because yes, we have bundled cost parking, and it's not fair, absolutely not fair what we have right now, and it needs to be fixed. And Sandag needs to take an active approach to moving parking in the right direction. You can't just wave your hands and say you think it'll get better. You have to play a major role to make it better. And how would you do that? Well, you would read the plaintiff's comment letter to the county on their terrible climate action plans over the years, because they've been very specific. And what you want to do is you want to create an Uber. You want to create a disruptive force in the private sector. And you do that with a regional with a RFP, request for proposal, and you do the parking correctly for your own employees. And I assume you're doing it better than average. I assume that people at Sandag that go to work are asked if they want free parking or do they want to pay for parking per month. That's much better than most places where you're going to get your free parking and your reduced wage no matter what. You're not going to make money off that parking. If you want to not use the parking, well, you get a pat on the back and thank you very much. So yes, I assume Sandag is asking their employees, do they want the free parking in a month or each month, or do they want, you know, a couple $100 a month? So but you have to do better than that. You have to create a third party to come in and actually manage the parking properly. A company that knows how to price parking, knows how to monetize unused parking, knows how to monetize data, and that's such a scary thing for people. But an RFP can protect privacy and protect people from this monetization. But you may know Uber is actually losing money, but it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We need the same thing for parking. We have terrible parking systems, and so you need to get down into the detail of a dividend account parking system, how it generates earnings for the people that are losing money because the parking is being provided. That would be the employees, that would be the people that shop at the grocery store, that would be people that use the train. I mean, there's all sorts of who should get those earnings. And you know, you need solar canopies, you need charging stations, you need management of the parking. Parking is a big, complicated system. You know, it's child's play for a company that knows a little bit of technology and will focus on parking, and then will operate parking everywhere that they can. So I saw a timer there, and I maybe you're listening to, maybe you're not, but I really appreciate all the time I've had to speak, and I would love to present more detail. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we'll have Carolina, who will be followed by Toshi.
Hi, sorry, it took a minute to unmute. Good morning, my name is Carolina. I'm here to represent Environmental Health Coalition and the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group. We thank staff for all the work to advance the vision to a transportation system that takes us into the future. So I have some questions. First, I'm wondering if there is a way that we could have a report that's specific to the benefits to environmental justice communities, if we could have a set of projects that outline how our communities are going to benefit. The Appendix A lays out the projects, and so it would be ideal if we had a section just dedicated to identify the projects that are going to benefit environmental justice communities. That would be really helpful, especially demonstrating the phasing. So what are the projects that are going to benefit our communities in 2025 and 2035 and consecutively? The next question is related to the bus system. It was presented today that buses are a huge opportunity to reducing greenhouse gas emission and toxic air pollution immediately. So it would be really great if we could have more details on how the Appendix A lays out a plan for some improvements to the bus system, but there's no funding allocated and not a lot of detail. And since it's such a huge opportunity, we would want to see more details so that we could jump on board and make sure that we advance that rapidly. The third question is about the Blue Line Express. It lays out in the appendix, it says that there's going to be double or third tracking. It is unclear to us if that means that there are plans for a Blue Line Express. We have concerns because, as you know, the Blue Line is the heart of the transit system in San Diego. It feels as if the Blue Line is not being taken into the future, rather is being left behind. So we want to see it highlight. We want to see the flashy, fancy project be centered on the Blue Line Express, because that's where it needs to be. It deserves to be just based on use. The fourth question is the 24-hour service. We hear that there is the goal to have service every 10 minutes. So does that mean that we're transitioning to 24 hours, and by when? We thank the staff for all the work on the Purple Line and ensuring that it's aligned on along City Heights. We have questions about the Youth Opportunity Pass. What we understand is that it's going to be implemented in 2027, which is a strong concern for us. As it was pointed on the report today, pricing has a huge impact on ridership, and
Thank you, Carolina. And sorry to cut you off there. We do have to move on to the next person. Next will be Toshi Ishihara, followed by Mid-City Can.
Can you hear me? This is Toshi Ishihara.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a volunteer with San Diego 350, also a member of San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group. So I have a couple of questions. So first of all, the 2035 plan includes commuter rail from National City all the way to Solano Valley, right? And then 2035, I believe that would be your target completion date. So that means we have only 14 years to complete. So I would like to know how realistic the plan is to have a commuter rail from National City going through City Heights and go all the way to Solano. And then next question I have is, so we will have many new train stations, transit hubs and the multiple connections between among buses and also rails, right? And then my question is that what kind of amenities are you thinking of having for those major stations and hubs? Because of course, a convenient of the transit system is very important. Also, we have to make sure we'll have a very comfortable ride, right? So as I getting older, I think I have to go to the bathroom very often. I'm sorry, but so I wonder, what's your plan for adding those, comfortable stuff for us, like a special amenity and the bathroom. And one more question I have, it is very similar to what just Carolina from EHC asked you about, which is about Blue Line Express. Page 16 of Appendix A shows Blue Line Express will have a third track. I'm sorry, not the Blue Line Express. Blue Line will have a third track. And I want what the third track will be for. Just for a freight train, or third track will be used to speed up the Blue Line actually trolleys. Okay, so those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will go to, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who the person's name is. It just says Mid-City Can, and that'll be followed by B. Mittermiller. Apologies, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Oh, there we go. Mid-City Can, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Hey folks, apologies. It took a second to unmute. Crystal Domayor with Mid-City Can. Folks, my first question obviously is regarding subsidies for riders. Originally, we were told that subsidies would first be available in 2027. In Appendix A, it shows 2035. My question is why? And is there space for that to be moved up earlier at all? If the intention for making equity considerations is specifically to address the disparities that have been increased in the last year, why then would this kind of support come later on? Secondly, we've asked several times for clearer and more direct communication about the projects that benefit our communities in a way that is shareable, that we can make accessible to community members. We still haven't received that. And how can we as community-based organizations be expected to get people behind this plan, to get people motivated and interested to participate in this and vouch for this RTP? If we can't receive good, appropriate communication for them, number one, and if they're very direct and very reasonable requests for youth opportunity passes have been denied. it's frustrating. It just doesn't make sense, right? We're up here debating whether or not folks should stay and work from home in order to decrease vehicle miles traveled, rather than just providing a transportation system that makes sense to all San Diegans, that is no cost and that they can access. I also want to highlight the concerns that were shared by Toshi and by Carolina regarding the Blue Line Express. Again, there's a lack of clarity, a lack of clear communication, and just it feels evasive in nature. So if somebody could provide some clarity on those points, that'd be really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is B. Mittermiller, who will be followed by Jacob Mandel.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my questions. I'm B. Mittermiller with San Diego 350. I'd like to start by thanking the staff for all of their work, not just for this particular meeting, but all of the work that they've been doing ever since Hassan Akrada took charge back at the end of 2018. I know that from day one, they've been working very, very hard, and I want to acknowledge that. Also, thank you for outreach and education to the board members and the general public. But I too am concerned about adequate outreach to the communities that are dependent on transit. And as has been said before, the staff will need their support to get this plan through the board of directors voting. I had one sort of simple question. The purple line starting in National City, before it can be completed to go down to the border, will there be a easy connection from National City to the blue line? I think that'll be really important for people in the South Bay coming north so they can access the Kearny Mesa Job Center and Sereno Valley, et cetera. I also wanted to comment on Jack Shu's point about driving being on welfare, and add to that in addition to that, the fossil fuel industry has been subsidized for decades, and that needs to end by making transit subsidized instead for the health of our planet. Oh, and also adopting transit, and maybe some people think that the percent of people who will be moved to taking transit isn't much, but Hassan has pointed out in the past that it doesn't take a huge percentage to achieve reduction in congestion, which will also reduce greenhouse gas emissions because people won't be idling on the freeway while they wait to move a few yards. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. We have 3 remaining public speakers. The next will be Jacob Mandel, followed by Nicole Burgess.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much to staff. My name is Jacob Mandel. I'm with the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. I have 2 comments and then just 2 questions. My first comment is I hope that SANDAG will consider the last mile and first mile connections in between the mobility hubs. My second comment is I hope that SANDAG will consider where bike parking fits in the regional plan outside of the mobility hubs. San Diegans will ride their bikes to transit, but they'll also take it to the grocery store or the bank. And so I hope SANDAG will consider neighborhood-based bike parking. My 2 questions are, 1, what methodology was used to decide the phasing of these active transportation projects? And then 2, as sort of a follow-up to that, what role did equity play in deciding the phasing of those projects? Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next will be Nicole Burgess, followed by Randy Torres Van Vleck, and Randy will be our last commenter.
Good afternoon, SANDAG board. Nicole Burgess, an advocate for healthy, sustainable, and sexy ways to move. And I am an advocate for prioritizing the health outputs of this plan. I just want to give a big shout out, kudos to Colleen, Hassan. They're amazing staff. They're on point. They answered the questions that were so important. And when we talk about value pricing, it is so important for us to understand that these automobiles have destroyed and are continuing to destroy our future. And if we don't do something significant, none of us will be here to see any of this. So we definitely have to address that and how we pay for it through these communities of concern down the I-15, the I-5, I-805. Anytime you drive through there, you're polluting those environments. And yes, those people, those victims should be compensated. And to have a transportation system that is paying what the cost that we're doing to the environment as folks in these cars. And I'll also bring up a quote that I heard recently. The problem is in the solution often. I want us to be very, very careful with EVs. EVs are poison to our environment as well. So a lot of conversations on that. I just want to address a couple comments. Rebecca Jones, I think when we're talking about like these systems these commutes are only 10% of these trips, right? Commute trips, but what we can do to transform our cities and for San Marcos to be inspired to be one of the most bike-friendly universities in the nation that focuses on urban planning and solar farming is like, we can transform and move like 40-50% out of their cars, 60. Raquel Vasquez, I appreciate your comments, but we don't need more lanes on the highway. We need to transform the way we move people. And so I applaud Sandag for really looking at, and Ray Major, thank you. You've said it so many times gracefully. The best way to change behavior is by money. So we have to either put a cost, which I actually don't like. I personally like to incentivize. So I continue to work with, be a voice here, inspire Sandag. I can't wait till bike data continues to be more evaluated and see the value of that and see that we can incentivize on all regional levels. I thank Sandag for getting Choyas Creek into this plan and look forward to Jack Shu and Raquel Vasquez and Supervisor Nora Vargas for working on that watershed and really thinking about how we can actually put all those military and folks on the harbor through an amazing pathway. So thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful Friday. I appreciate the time to comment.
Thank you, Nicole. And our final commenter will be Randy Torres Van Black.
Good morning, Sandag board members and staff. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Randy Torres Van Vleck, pronouns he, him, or they, them, and I'm the Director of Policy and Planning at the City Heights Community Development Corporation. We're also co-founders, along with several great organizations, of the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group. I want to share my congrats with the staff for all their hard work on the 5 big moves to date. We look forward to today's release of the draft later this afternoon. As someone who grew up in South Bay and has been working closely with residents in Mid-City for years, I'm very excited for the connectivity that the Purple Line will provide for our south of the 8 communities and the new economic opportunities that will be created through connections to San Diego State West, Sorrento Valley, and hopefully via feeder routes to UC San Diego. We're happy to see the near-term bus rapid transit rollout as part of the plan. Phasing is a big question for Mid-City and City Heights. We've been a part of projects that have unfortunately taken decades to build. We've seen timelines stretched out for pretty much most regional projects that we've been a part of. It might be value in creating an implementation plan that can identify how these multi-decade projects can become multi-year projects instead. And finally, wanted to incorporate some of the elements from the Elevate SD measure that MTS conducted community engagement for. There's a lot of good takeaways from that. One of the top priorities from that work was late night, early morning, and 24-hour transit service. So we're hoping to see a plan for 24-hour transit service in the 5 big moves. We're also hoping to see a plan for bathroom access, identifying where those public restrooms are, how our residents and riders can access them so that they can ride with dignity that they deserve. finally wanted just to lift up the comments from Chris Sotomayor and Carolina Martinez about the Youth Opportunity Pass and the question about the third track from the blue line. For the blue line, we did see in Appendix A that it calls for a third track, but we wanted to get greater clarification on where that third track will be located so that we can hopefully incorporate Blue Line Express with overnight service on the Blue Line corridor, the most popular transit corridor in the region. So thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much. And Chair, that does conclude the public comments on agenda items.
Thank you so much, Ms. Francesca. Ms. Colleen, is there anything else? Would you like to close us out?
Chair, we do need to provide an opportunity for non-agenda comments for the public as well before we adjourn.
All right, let's provide an opportunity for non-agendized comments before we adjourn.
Thank you very much. I see one hand from Rosina. Rosina, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. I am Rosina Lizarraga. I work for Olive Gardens and Learning Centers National City. I'm a transportation project manager here in the local jurisdictions. This is a question that comes to my head because according to the trending, some also currently I'm playing a role in the National School District Board. We're facing cuts because of the trending people leaving the state, and the trending is because the cost of living adjustment is so high, and people's leaving in California, as you see on the last data that was released, 14 million and more people are leaving the state. What are the considerations that have been taken looking forward for more years to come in regards to this trending that is people's leaving the state? I just come to my head when I'm looking at those projections and the expectations from the project that are going to be implemented in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosina. And I believe we have one more public comment. That'll be Mike Bullock. Mike, you can go ahead when you're ready. Mike, I believe you're self-muted at the moment.
Oh, there it is. I found it. It's down the lower left-hand corner. Got to tell me where it is. Yeah, what I want to talk about is the state's climate action plan for transportation infrastructure. And that draft has been released. And one of the things that made me jump out of my seat and holler was that they have in there a road use charge, which is means-based. A means-based road use charge to replace the gas tax. And again, it's amazing how much confusion there is. People think that we're not charged to drive on the roads, and we actually are. It's called the gas tax. It's very unfair. It's very old, and it has absolutely no future. We know we're going to electrify the fleet. I also heard confusion about clean cars and dirty cars. All cars are dirty. I love my Tesla, but it's 65% fossil fuel. So I'm kidding myself if I think that's a clean car. It's not as dirty a car, is what it is. And it has many of the disadvantages of cars. But my question and my hope, my question is, I wonder if Sandag is lobbying to get the state moving on their road use charge. And they've been talking about it. They did SB 1077, that process. And by the way, when that process took place, most of the volunteers chose the system, which could violate people's privacy the most. It was fully automated. And what you do to protect privacy is, I'm a systems engineer. You define what you want. You want privacy? What do you mean by privacy? If you can define it, you can get it, and you can put it in there for the company that develops this road use charge. They will have a lot of requirements to meet. And one of those requirements will be privacy. And that will probably increase the cost of the system significantly, 5%, 10%. I mean, it will be important that you have controls on that information, and especially when it's means-based. That means that the income of the person that owns the car, the net worth, you know, those kind of things, and absolutely, people low income that are low net worth should not be charged at all. People have to drive. We have to understand the wealth is disproportionately held in this country, and we have to address that. We talk about equity, we need to do it, but Sandag needs to be lobbying the state, and I want to see that that's done. And I want my representative, Councilman Rodriguez, to help me here and represent Oceanside's interest, even the low-income people. I know we don't seem to care about those people, but they exist, and let's take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Chair. That does conclude the public comments.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank again all of the Sandag staff team for doing such a fantastic job today, and Hassan, and to all of the board members and committee members and stakeholders, public members, for such a wonderful discussion. With that, this concludes our workshop. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.